So in this War Thunder video, we're going to be looking at the M1 KVT, which is now America's top tier premium. It used to be the XM1 and as well as the Wolfpack, but it seems like those two vehicles either are not selling well or they wanted to give you a better premium overall within War Thunder. And this is kind of what the M1 KVT is. It's basically a copy vehicle from the tech tree of the M1 Abrams. It is supposed to be a M1A1 Abrams, but you know, it is what it is, and they've kind of changed it up to be more in line of game balance, which I kind of can't blame them in, because whenever you look at the M1 KVT, if it had the 120 and it had M829, for example, it would be very strong for the BR that it's given at 10.3. And since majority of the premiums within War Thunder are either a 0.3 BR away from each other, being it be like the Challenger or being the Leopard, they're all around the battle ratings of 9.7 to 10.3, which is a good thing in my opinion. Because since premiums are one of those vehicles that are kind of played the most, you want them all for each nation to kind of be on the same playing field, because if one is just dominating, then as you know, the one that's going to be dominating is the one that people are going to play more, which is always a bad thing. Now in the future, if War Thunder ever introduces some more, premiums for the tech tree, maybe the M1 KVT gets upgraded to its real life version of the M1A1, but we will have to see. That it is always a possibility, just like they did with Sweden with the CV90-105, where it was upgraded to the XC8, So whenever you talk to people who play the Abrams or who play against the Abrams, you either have two people that will talk to you. You have the people who think that the M1 Abrams needs some sort of upgrade, whether it be through its armor, declassifying documents for it, or the round, or you have the people who are like, this thing is actually pretty good because it's really nippy around the map, and also the reload on the Abrams is just so good that you're able to take multiple targets out, and also you're just able to brawl like there is nothing else. The only thing that the M1 KVT kind of lacks in is its range capability, because the top end round that you're able to get on it is M774, but at the end of the day, if you're fighting at range with an Abrams, you're basically playing it wrong. And the reason you're doing that is because you want to be in those engagements where you're able to pick out weak spots, where you're able to go through the driver hatch of T-72s, where you're able to gun breach Challengers even, and even if you see your Leopard 2A4 friends, you're able to gun breach them and go for the low plate, which will be easy kills to be able to kill them. And that's the one thing about the M1 KVT that people kind of need to understand, is that it's not really great at being an Abrams. Like whenever you think of the Abrams, you think of it being in like Desert Storm, just hugging a defilade, trying to, just shoot, scoop back, then go back into it. It's not like that. It's kind of like whenever you're playing the Jumbo within the American tech tree, like the 75 version back in the day when it was 4.7, you want to be that annoyance. You want to be that person who pushes with your team, and you want to be the person who gets a bunch of kills. That's basically how the Abrams plays. It really doesn't need M833 or anything like that, because if it got that, it would just go up in BR. Because as we see right now, the IPM1 is already at 11.0. And the reason it also does pretty good is because of the 105 reload of being 5 seconds whenever you get it down to an ace crew. And that's the same thing. You just basically get the M1 IP, whether it be a little bit less armor on it and also weaker ammunition, but at a lower battle rating. So it's basically what you get with the M1 KVT. It's very nippy. It's like an M8 Hellcat whenever you're trying to run it around the map and you're able to get to positions before majority of other people will. And also the survivability on the Abrams is really good. You have the blowout panels. Like, it's kind of rare to actually get one shot in Abrams. Sometimes you just get one thrown straight through your turret ring, and then you're kind of just like, oh, my crew is kind of like, kind of dead in the turret. But then you just back away and you smoke and you go run away because you're able to have your reverse speed do into your favor, which is always really good. The M1 KVT is one of those vehicles that's just really good at being that annoyance, being that person who gets on flanks, being that person who kind of, pushes the enemy and, tries to do all that sort of stuff. And it's one of the favorite play styles, at least I like in War Thunder, because it's very retroactive of what you do. There's sometimes you should be doing this, sometimes you should be doing that. And it's just always a wonderful time to be playing the M1 Abrams. And I feel like that this one is just, it's a carbon copy from the tech tree. And that's the one that I really enjoyed playing back in the day. Now, the one thing about it is that, yes, your armor is not the best. It's going to be one of those things where even 3BM42 can go through your turret cheeks. If you're facing a T80 used, or 3BM46 can easily just pin you. And it's one of those things that's kind of, you're not going to have a ton of armor. And I feel like that's one of the big things that people kind of rely on with the M1 Abrams, is that they kind of see that it should have armor. It's the same shape as the M1A2, but as you know, it's not the same. So it's one downfall that I think people fall into. And it is one of the ways that you kind of have to play it. You kind of have to play it very aggressively. You have to play it to where you basically put in all of your strength, being your reload, being your quickness to get to positions before other people can, and then also just being a very huge nuisance, because it is one of those things. It's one of those things I just really love. I love the Abrams. It's one of my probably favorite top tier vehicles in War Thunder. I don't really prefer the 120s, but anytime they have a 105, it's just really fun to play. Now, after I did my little talk about how I really enjoy the Abrams, let's talk about the M1 KVT in a little bit more of a detail, because it's a interesting thing, because it's kind of different to the regular tech tree Abrams. You don't get a loader machine gun, which is kind of odd. You know, it's kind of odd they kind of remove that. But you also get a transmog, I guess you could call it, of a bunch of just random Soviet type looking stuff on your tank, which means that you kind of look like a Soviet tank in a way, which you really don't. But you know, you get what it is. But none of this stuff does anything for your tank. It's just very much cosmetic. Like all the ERA looking brick things, they don't give you ERA. They're just cosmetic. The only thing that it does change is the fact that you cannot put your barrel completely behind you anymore, because there's these really dumb looking barrels that you can actually see on the armor viewer on the back. That's like the Soviet little, like, I believe it's like fuel barrels or whatever they put on the back of their tanks. So yeah, once those are there, you cannot aim completely backwards, which kind of sucks. But at the end of the day, whenever it comes to NATO MBTs, if an enemy gets behind you, you majority of the time will not have the gun depression to even do it because of your raised engine deck. So not a huge issue, but just remember you cannot shoot through those, and your gun also cannot go through them. So it's a little bit of a thing. Now, if that is such a big problem for you, you can actually turn off the Vismod. So then you can go back to looking like a regular Abrams, which is always, you know, pretty cool, especially if you're wanting to make it look like you're just an M1 Abrams. I mean, it's one of those options you do have with the M1 KVT, which is always a positive thing. But honestly, I would personally just leave the Vismod on because it does look cool. You do lose some weight of it because you do remove your side skirts from the M1 Abrams, which makes it look a little funky, but you know, it does make it a little bit more quick whenever you're, you know, accelerating and stuff like that. So I do recommend actually keeping the transmog on. To me, it's worth it. You know, I've never really had a situation of where the barrel's got in the way or anything. Also, it just looks really cool. You get a little, you know, cool little ghillie suit on the top of your gun, which is always really good. So would I recommend the M1 KVT? I kind of would say yes. I mean, it's one of those play styles I wouldn't recommend to a newer player that's to the game, because it's one of those things where you kind of need to already know where weak spots are at, because the round that you have is not the best. M774 is not going to be a round that carries you for you, like 3BM42 or something like that, because it's one of the lower pinning rounds whenever it comes to, you know, top tier, or whenever it comes to top tier premiums. And it's not going to carry you. You're going to have to know where to shoot whenever it comes to, you know, T-72s. You're going to have to know where to shoot whenever it comes to Leopards, as well as Challengers and all of the other premiums that you may see. And then also all of the tech tree vehicles that are going to be around that battle rating of the M1 KVT. So it's a vehicle that requires a lot of knowledge to it, but once you get the knowledge of what you can face, you know, the weak spots of them, you do pretty well, because that's what you have to aim for whenever it comes to that. So whenever I'm running ammo for this thing, I normally like to take around like 20 rounds. You can take a little bit more. Remember that you do have to blow up panels in the back, so you can completely fill that up with ammo. And as long as a round doesn't penetrate into the cabin of the tank and hits the ammo, your blow up panel will save you, but you will lose pretty much all of your ammo. So now would I recommend the M1 KVT? I kind of would. The XM1 is still going to be a pretty decent vehicle. It did receive a nerf recently with the M735 that may change in the future, but your really only options for America is the XM1, which is a rank 6. Remember that. So if rank 8 ever comes to the game, rank 6 will not be able to research rank 8. So that is one thing to actually take into account with the M1 KVT. That's going to be a rank 7. Now, the other premium that you have is the Wolfpack, which is a striker, which has M900. It has really good rounds. The only thing about it is that it kind of does the different playstyle of the Abrams, of where you want to kind of stay at range, use your really good thermals to spot people, and then also use your M900 to just pin pretty much everything. So it's really the kind of playstyle that you want. Within War Thunder, you have the Wolfpack, which is still really good at range, or do you want an M1 KVT that's going to be able to brawl, be able to use those really like little maps, you know, like Abandoned Factory or Eastern Europe, all those maps which are kind of small, where you're able to kind of like brawl with them. That's where the M1 KVT is going to be better. But the Wolfpack overall, I think, is going to be a better option if you're newer to the game, just because if you just stay at range, you can use your Razor rangefinder, M900 should just be able to pin whatever you shoot at whenever it comes to that. But yeah, the M1 KVT is my overall pick. I would say it is probably one of the best premiums you can get within War Thunder right now, and that is probably an honor to actually say to that thing. So yeah, highly recommend the M1 KVT. It's not a noob-friendly vehicle though, but if you have played War Thunder for a good bit now and you're kind of knowing what the weak spots are on all the T-72 tanks, all the T-90s, T-80s, all that sort of stuff, Leopards, Challengers, then it's going to be a pretty decent little vehicle. But till then, I highly actually recommend just, trying out, America, trying out the tech tree, because the playstyle of the M1 KVT is very similar to some of the lower VR vehicles in the game, like the Jumbo or even the Hellcat. Kind of a mixture of those two vehicles in one, which is always an interesting thing. So yeah, I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next War Thunder video.